Good day, I am Sarah Hudachi Mustafa, a third-year student at the Philippine State College of Aeronautics or PhilSCA, Institute of Liberal Arts and Sciences or ILAS, pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Aviation Tourism major in Travel Management Section 1. I, together with my groupmates, we will present to you our research proposal entitled Customer Satisfaction on the Service Quality of a Philippine Air Passenger Carrier During the Pandemic. My co-authors are Ronel Jerome E. Bernardo, Jamil Angelica S. Castillo, Christine P. Licon, Francesca Nicole C. Mapalo, and Kenneth Gilbert A. Valenzuela, guided by our research advisor, Dr. Leo Mendel D. Rosario.
Air travel is vastly considered a tourism product with intense customer demands, which would eventually stimulate a dynamic competition among airlines who steadfastly paved the way for the air travel industry to enhance service quality to consistently fulfill the needs of the customers. Establishing the relationship between service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic will be geared in this assessment by representing an air or air service quality model, which embraces 5 dimensions such as airline tangibles, terminal tangibles, personnel, empathy, and image. Descriptive and correlational analysis were maximized in interpreting the data collected from the residents of Greater Manila area who immersed themselves in the services of the Philippine Air Passenger Carrier during the pandemic. A 5-point Likert scale will be utilized in acquiring the responses for the study through convenience sampling. The relationship between the service quality and the customer satisfaction of the experienced passengers of the airline will be determined through the correlation coefficient. The featured air passenger carrier will become more acquainted with comprehending the degree of customer satisfaction in their airlines in the facets of service quality, monetary value, and infrastructure, which are core from their encounter with the airlines that perform a beneficial role in handling and enhancing their business operations. It facilitates the management of the featured airline in furnishing evaluations about the perceptions and opinions of the customers on about their service quality. Thus, the credibility of the AirQual model is signified in highlighting the influence of service quality on the level of customer satisfaction in the airline during the pandemic.
In the last 3 decades, the commercial aviation industry has become a significant accelerator towards fostering economic growth and development of nations. Akhtar, Kul, Hassan, Jamil, and Nasid released a finding that almost 4 billion passengers and 62 millions of freight are served by aviation transportation to domestic and international destinations annually, and has played a crucial influence in the faster and more comfortable passenger and commodity mobility in national economies.
This pandemic has been the basis of implementation of additional health protocols, most specifically in passenger air transportation. With this in hand, air passengers carriers' quality service status are deemed to change with regards to customer satisfaction. At the spike of rapid dive in flight numbers, service quality must continue to be updated and improved to increase the number of air passengers despite the ongoing pandemic.
Solution or methodology by research group number 1. Australia 2019 has conducted a survey on the service quality of Philippine Airlines during the pre-pandemic period using the air service quality model. Limitation or disadvantage of solution or methodology by research group number 1. The study of Australia 2019 does not represent the current service quality offered by the air passenger carriers during a pandemic period, which does not consider health protocols. Solution or methodology by research group number 2. Agarwal and Gowda 2020 determined the service quality of several air passenger carriers generate a general overview of the airline industry in India. However, they have used their model limited to 3 factors only. Limitation or disadvantage of solution or methodology by research group number 2. The model used by Agarwal and Gowda is not a standard approach for determining service quality for airlines.
Proposed solution methodology. A recent survey should be conducted on the customer satisfaction on the service quality of a Philippine air passenger carrier during the pandemic. Establishing the relationship between service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic, as it enables Philippine Airlines to evaluate and synchronize the various strengths and weaknesses of their services. The novelty of the proposed solution methodology. The study would be able to report on the current status of the service quality of an airline in the Philippines. The researchers will be able to draft solutions and proposals for Philippine Airlines toward the improvement of their service during the pandemic. This will highlight the significant relevance of the study in the present period, which was not executed by the previous set of researchers.
Aside from establishing the relationship between service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic, the acquired results and findings will benefit different segments. Contribution to new knowledge. This would enable Philippine Airlines to evaluate and scrutinize their services, various strengths and weaknesses during the pandemic. The new acquired information will also permit them to assess if their passengers were able to meet the expectations of the services they have provided during the pandemic, which will facilitate them towards drafting recommendations that are geared towards the improvement of their services. Considering that the results complement with the prevailing conditions of the pandemic, the novelty of the recommendations will be more contemporary, which will definitely uphold a more promising prospect towards attaining service recovery. Since this is the inaugural analysis on comprehending the relationship between the service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic, it will also provide a valuable means for them to enhance their services geared towards the safety and security of their passengers from acquiring the said virus. Contribution to Philippine Airlines. Philippine Airlines will become more acquainted with comprehending the degree of customer satisfaction in their airlines in the facets of service quality, monetary value, and infrastructure, which are core from their encounter with the airlines that perform a beneficial role in handling and enhancing their business operations. This will enable them to detect service gaps in their service quality, which might pose a threat towards occurrence of customer dissatisfaction that would subsequently stir the loss of sales and loyalty. And worse comes to worse, it will tremendously affect the reputation of the country. Employing an analysis on the service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines is beneficial on this endeavor, most especially that we are currently in a pandemic. This will breathe life to their company responsibility of yielding their customers an experience which will serve as a trademark in their vision through the mechanism of steadfast endeavor of improving their service delivery and trainings of their employees. Contribution to the Philippines. Suppose Philippine Airlines will practice a consistent and steadfast, impressive service quality to their customers. In that case, this will be beneficial to the company's reputation. It will encourage a continuous flow of income to the airline's economy, stimulating a positive contribution to the country's gross domestic product and gross national product. As official flag carrier of the country, considering into serious account the feedbacks and grievances of the passengers of Philippine Airlines, will serve as a strong foundation towards formulating resolutions and proposals towards improving their services. This is adherent to their commitment of accommodating the cumulative and veritable quality travel experience to all of their customers, as they are under incessant efforts towards dispensing products that they have embossed a significant amount of effort and dedication in order to continuously encourage their customers to patronize their services.
For the statement of the problem, the focus are categorized into three aspects, namely the demographic profile of the respondents and the relationship between the service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic, which are further divided into 5 dimensions: their airline tangibles, their terminal tangibles, their personnel, their empathy, and their image, which leads to the last aspect, the overall correlation between the 5 dimensions of service quality to the customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic. Hypothesis. There is no significant relationship between the service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic.
Conceptual framework. The analysis is geared towards acquiring the demographic profile of the respondents, which will be coming from the Greater Manila area, which comprises Metro Manila and the neighboring provinces of Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal. The acquisitions of the insights and perceptions on the execution of the services of Philippine Airlines is also the main target of this perusal. This will be enacted through conducting a 5-point Likert scale, which will then have its corresponding correlational and descriptive analysis. This 5-point Likert scale features items relevant to the service quality of Philippine Airlines amidst the global pandemic. The relationship between the service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines during the pandemic will be measured through the correlation coefficient. As soon as the results for the quantitative analysis are established, an action plan will be furnished which will provide the recommendations and strategies towards improving the services of Philippine Airlines during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The findings of this study will assist Philippine Airlines in resolving customer issues or maintaining the consistency of their impressive array of services. A total of 400 respondents will be chosen from the Greater Manila area who used Philippine Airlines services during the pandemic with the use of AirQual model to determine whether respondents' expectations of Philippine Airlines services were met in terms of airline tangibles, terminal tangibles, image, empathy, and personnel. The correlation coefficient will be used to determine the service quality and customer satisfaction of Philippine Airlines, as this will either support or refute the hypothesis.
The appendices feature the sample Likert items which will be handed over to the respondents of the study. These items are inclined to how Philippine Airlines practices their safety protocols in the new normal. This scopes 8 sections. The first section features an open letter for the respondents featuring the goals of their analysis and a note on the confidentiality of the responses. They will be also asked to input their email address in this section of the questionnaire. The second section features the background information which corresponds to the demographic profile of the respondents. They will be required to input their names in order to ensure the credibility of the results of the study and their place of residence wherein the items are aligned in the regions under the Greater Manila area. Appendix C features the survey item format in Google Forms. Appendix D focuses the Likert survey items for terminal tangibles, which revolves around the services that are provided at the airport, such as the cleanliness of airport toilets, the effectiveness of site systems, the ability of shops and trolleys, and a reliable control system. Appendix E gives prominence to the Likert survey items for personnel, which examines the quality of the interaction that employees provide to the customer. Appendix F involves the Likert survey items for empathy, which ask about problem-free service such as careful luggage handling, clearly communicated compensation schemes, or punctuality. Appendix G contains the Likert survey items relating to the image of the airline, which encompasses promotional offers, value for money, or the overall perception of the airline's image. Appendix H highlights the Likert survey items for airline tangibles, which presents the items relating to the overall conditions of the aircraft, such as the quality of the equipment of the airplane, the comfort of the seats, and the cleanliness of the interior. And last but not the least, Appendix I features a note of appreciation for the respondents for taking some of their time in answering the research instrument.
In the following slides that we will show you, we have prepared another 3 research proposals, each of which includes an abstract. Tourist intention to visit, the impact of airport experience at a Philippine destination. It is becoming more difficult for travel destinations to survive without repeat commercial activity in airports, which have evolved into full-service centers. Airport services greatly influence the likelihood of returning to the same destination. It is because the airport is the first and last encounter that tourists have when visiting a country. The importance of travelers' experience with airport services. In light of the current pandemic, the study examines how airport experiences affect travelers' decision to visit a specific place in the Philippines. Additionally, it investigates the relationship between tourist satisfaction with the destination's airport services and their likelihood of returning. A conceptual framework will be developed to investigate the impact of the airport experience on travelers' intentions to return to visit a specific place in the Philippines.
A 5-point Likert scale will be utilized to acquire the study's responses through convenience sampling. Data will be collected from the tourists in the Greater Manila area who will be immersed in visiting a specific place in the Philippines using air travel through intercept at the Philippines airports and will be quantitative. A series of open-ended questions will be dispensed to the analysis respondents through Google Forms, then processed to yield useful results and conclusions. The data will be analyzed with the help of structural equation modeling. As a result, the most important aspect in determining travelers' desire to return to a region was their image. Theoretically and empirically, the impact of tourist overall pleasure with the destination on their behavioral intentions has been widely documented.
Factors driving tourists' intention to tour around the Philippines amid a global pandemic. The intention of the tourists to visit the Philippines amid a global pandemic will be the focus of this research. The nature of this study will revolve around the tourists' motivation on why they chose to travel to the Philippines, despite the threat of the rising numbers of COVID patients in the country. Despite the fact that COVID-19 is a threat to the health and safety of everyone, the motivation of the tourists to travel within a country will be centralized in the analysis.
Descriptive analysis will be maximized in comprehending the data acquired from the respondents who were able to travel within the Philippines amid the COVID-19 pandemic. A series of open-ended questions will be dispensed to the respondents of the analysis through Google Forms. Each of the teams presented in the discussion of the results will have its respective literature review to enforce its claims. The potential results emerging from the analysis will be substantially beneficial for the Department of Tourism of the country as they will be able to propose and promulgate more strategies in improving the tourism sector of the Philippines. It will also aid the local communities who are consistently on the lookout of maximizing their means in gaining a wider traction of tourists in their areas, taking into consideration the health protocols of the country and combating the global pandemic. Thus, the cogency of the motivations of tourists in touring around the Philippines within the pandemic is geared towards strengthening the tourism segment of the country.
influencing factors of Filipinos' decision in buying airline tickets, pre-pandemic versus during pandemic.
The goal of the study aims to identify which factors affect their decision the most when purchasing airline tickets as perceived before the pandemic versus to today's situation. Descriptive and qualitative analysis will be used in order to fully grasp the data required from the respondents, which are Filipinos who have traveled by air within the years 2017 to 2019 and 2020 to 2022, separating responses of those who have traveled from before and from during the pandemic. The influencing factors will be derived from Kachun Law Study in 2020. The study's influencing factors are namely perceived value, service quality, purchase intention, price, and customer satisfaction.
The use of structural equation modeling will also be utilized for the data analysis. The results of the analyzed data will be able to aid air passenger transportation services in obtaining crucial information from customers about their needs and wants when purchasing airline tickets, thus theoretically advancing them into knowing how to target their customer satisfaction.
And that ends our presentation. Thank you so much.